Hey everyone, today is September 1st, which means it is time for another garden tour. And I don't know about you, but for me, August actually seemed to go by slower than the rest of the summer, which was really nice because it meant that I got to enjoy every moment of it. And I also think that if you go back and watch the last month garden tour, that this is going to be the month where we see a lot of difference between the two tours, just because I've had to pull a lot of plants that were growing in the summer, and then also I started sowing some stuff for fall. So I think you're going to see a lot of difference, although a lot of the plants are still the same. But let's go ahead and take a look at the garden on September 1st. Let me show you a quick overview of how the garden looks before we start getting into the plant details. So if we come up here to the center bed, this is probably where you're going to see the most change, and it definitely made me sad, but I did have 4 Super Tunia bubblegums in each corner here that I ended up pulling maybe midway through August. They had one round of budworms, which I spent a lot of time managing, and they went away, but then they came back a couple weeks ago. And since I wanted to make room for fall plants anyway, I feel it was the time to go ahead and pull them. There's actually no petunias left in the garden, and since they are my favorite plant, it does make me a little sad, but they'll definitely be back next year. So let's come in close up here and look at what is currently left in the bed. The super bells in the center here we still have. I wasn't going to pull those just because I didn't want this bed to look too empty up front. And then I actually went ahead and added in some vining plants that I got from another fellow Chicago gardener. So I do have those to trail down because I am kind of missing having plants cascading down the sides of the beds and not just having very tall plants in the middle. But speaking of those, these are obviously my zinnias. They've been amazing, like exceeded all expectations that I have. I got these from Johnny Seeds, and that also reminds me, I'm going to try to link down in the description below where I've got the plants that people ask the most about. So these I got from Johnny Seed. They are beautiful. I did have to tie one string around them to keep them supported, but other than that I don't have any staking system in place, and so far, fingers crossed, they haven't broken or toppled over. So these I love, definitely growing next year, probably in the exact same spot. Then I have the orange zinnias down here. There's actually some white and pink ones over there. They're just not blooming currently. These I got from a garden center in Indiana. So just different levels here of the zinnias, and I 100% did not plan it that way. I just got a bunch of plants and threw them all in there, and this is how it turned out. Coming in a little bit closer, I've done something that I'm not sure if it's actually going to work out, but I've gone ahead and sown some broccoli seeds in here. They're right next to the drip system because what I want to have happen is as we get further into fall, I'd like to see large broccoli plants on each of these corners here. So I have them sown in the 4 corners, essentially where the Super Tunias were. And I think that'll look really beautiful. I had 2 here last fall and I really liked the way they look. And I don't know if this makes me strange or not, but I also like to think about the backdrop of my garden. So obviously the trees on the street are green right now, so I liked to have more color in here during the summer. But as we get into fall, I know this one turns red. This is only a second fall here. I'm pretty sure this one's red. It might be yellow, but basically the backdrop will no longer be green. So I think I'll be satisfied with more green in this bed when the backdrop is a different color. I hope that made sense. But what I'm concerned about right now is the shade from the zinnias and the other plants in the bed. I mean, the seeds are growing, so we'll see how they do. I might sow some in separate containers, just in case the seeds aren't getting enough sunlight. I'll have other containers that I'll let grow a little bit larger that I can then transplant to this bed. So obviously I'll keep you updated on how that goes, and we'll see if the broccoli was successful in the corners of this raised bed. So coming down here now in front of this raised bed, not too much has changed. I still have the geraniums here in the pots. They had a few budworms on them, but not too many issues. And then on the 2 gray pots, this is where I've been growing a container variety of delphinium. They've been okay. I haven't been really impressed with them. This one actually hasn't put out any flowers. The one down there did, but the stem was so weak that it kept flopping over. So I was thinking of pulling them, but I did see someone in another video comment that their delphiniums did a lot better the second year, so I think I will actually overwinter these and see how they do next year. But I did pop in just some caladium in here as well. I might pop in another flower or 2 just to kind of fill out this container, because to me they looked kind of empty with just the delphinium growing. So that is the front part of the garden. Swinging around here, I have another geranium here, one on the other side of the herb garden, or the herb rack. And then here are my herbs, which have been going strong all summer. So my chocolate mint, I have my rosemary, I have oregano, lavender, thyme, and then sage down here. I actually have a video coming out soon of how I've been drying my herbs throughout the season. And just quickly, swinging around here to the other side, I'll get to that mess in a second. I have my 2 hydrangeas over here. This one is reblooming and looking pretty good. This one I actually went ahead and cut off the flowers because I'm drying them to use in arrangements for fall and winter. So I'm kind of excited about that. I love using dried hydrangeas around the house, but looks pretty bare right now, but she should bloom nicely again next season. Now I have a bit of a mess here. As I mentioned, I got some trailing plants from another local gardener, so I am going to figure out where to put these in my garden just to enjoy for the rest of the season, even though there's not much of the season left. Okay, now swinging back around to this side. This plant right here, and then that plant right there, I'm really excited about. So these are 2 strawberry plants that I propagated from this main plant here. I also have a video showing the process, and I think I left the propagations attached to this plant for about 3 to 4 weeks, cut them off, and now they are already producing strawberries of their own. I had a strawberry plant earlier on in the spring that died. It got some sort of fungal issue. I grabbed 2 more. There's 2 plants in here. I think I also had a video showing me planting this up, but it looks absolutely beautiful and the berries are delicious. This corner over here, so I have my okra plant. Well, I have 1 over here. I have 3 total. I had no idea how much these produced, so next year I'm only going to have 1 plant, but I mean, we've been eating okra multiple times every week. I really like the blooms on it. I think they're really pretty, so definitely growing next year, but not growing as much. Behind it is the other hydrangea that, again, I had to cut back because it had some scorching on it. It's reblooming, still looking good. Hopefully I'll be able to overwinter that and it'll come back healthy next year. The aronia berry right there. And in the corner, I have this grape plant. I'm still unsure, I feel like I've mentioned this every tour, what I'm gonna do with this grape plant, where I'm gonna have it trailing or how I'm gonna trellis it. So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments, because I'm just kind of still at a loss of what I'm gonna do. But that's nothing I have to worry about this year. That's gonna be next year when hopefully I figure that out. Coming up here, I have my blueberry plant, some of the giant marigolds behind it. And then moving on to this bed. So this bed was my least favorite for the first few months in the garden, just because it felt like it took forever for everything to grow. But now it is my absolute favorite. It's the standout in the garden right now. So in here I have gomphrena, which are these little ball-like flowers. They're absolutely beautiful. They do really well when you dry them. They basically hold their color and their shape. So I'm 100% adding more varieties to my gomphrena next year. And again, I'll link below where I got these from and the type that these are. In the back is the mystery seed that I mentioned. I planted the seeds and then threw the seed packet away, and it turns out they are asters, which is great because those bloom later in the season, so I still have a lot of color in the garden. I did not know they were going to be pink, and I'm pretty sure the seed packet was a mixed variety, so I don't know if it's just all pink or if I happen to only plant the pink seeds here, but this is now unintentionally the all pink bed. Here in the front, I pulled the regular petunias and placed them with, let's see if I can pronounce this, kalanchoe plants in the corner here. They were regular petunias here, not super petunias, and I don't think I'm going to grow regular petunias next year. They just don't trail in the same way. I don't enjoy them as much as I enjoy the super petunias, and if I'm going to deal with budworms, I want to make sure it's on a plant that I thoroughly enjoy. Swinging down here, this one I'm very excited about. So this is my raspberry bush. I got it as a tiny plant last year, and I'm now finally getting ripe raspberries. Raspberries is one of the plants that I had as a child in our backyard, so just being able to have one now in my home as an adult makes me incredibly happy. Back over here are my 2 rhubarb plants. Some of the leaves are looking a little bit haggard, but overall they're doing great. Again, I'll be overwintering these, and then next year I can finally start harvesting the stalks. This bag has 2 okra plants that I couldn't bear to thin, so there's just 2 of them. And again, like I said, 3 okra plants for 2 people is way too much. It's hard to tell, but there are actually 3 30-gallon grow bags here. One has a tomato surrounded by marigolds, and I know you cannot see the tomato plant, so that's something I will be fixing next year. The second bag is just full of marigolds. I originally had a pepper in here, but the marigolds basically swallowed it up. I know I mentioned this before, but I assumed the marigolds were going to be a few inches tall, never bothered to read the seed packet, and they're like 3 to 4 feet tall. I really like how they look though, so I'm definitely going to have them in the garden next year. I'm just not going to try to companion plant them around plants that don't get as tall as they do. You can sort of see what's left of the tomato plant in there. I'm probably going to pull the tomatoes in the next couple weeks, so they will not be in the October 1st garden tour, and I'm going to try to figure out what I can plant in their place. Coming through here, here's the back of the center raised bed. I do have broccoli sown here, and then just a few rogue zinnias, and I forgot I had put the asters here as well, and you can see that these are actually either white or super light pink, so I think there were some other seeds in that bag. Coming down here, this is my eggplant. Let me get my shadow out of the way. This is another one that's my first year growing it, and I had no idea how much they produced, so we've also been eating eggplant like crazy. I think 1 plant for 2 people is definitely enough, so I'm glad that's all that I've been growing there. Here is my cherry tomato plant. I always have really good luck with cherry tomatoes in containers. They always do really well, but again, I can already tell that it's kind of puttering out. And then something else I just want to briefly mention. So I've always had hornworms the last 3 years that I've grown tomato plants. This is the first year I haven't. And I was growing tomatoes here in the same location, the same deck last year, got hornworms. So is it the fact that they're surrounded by 3-foot tall marigolds? Maybe, but I am going to try to put the marigolds near the tomatoes next year, just not in the same bag. Some other changes in the garden. So if you remember, and if you don't, you can check out the August garden tour. There were 2 melon plants in here. I had a cantaloupe and a honeydew. I got 3 melons off the honeydew that I ate, and they were delicious. So I don't typically enjoy honeydew. It's not my favorite melon, but from the garden they just taste a lot sweeter. The ones from the store always sort of tasted like, I don't know, slightly flavored water to me, but the honeydew melons were delicious. And then I had a cantaloupe plant that I only got 1 cantaloupe from here because one was growing underneath the bed. I didn't notice, and then when I pulled the plant I saw the smushed cantaloupe, so that was a little bit sad. And next year I will make sure to tame the plants a little bit more and double check that there are no melons growing underneath the bed. So what is in this bed now? Well, I have this echinacea, which is really beautiful. I like the color of it. And then I've sown radish seeds here. These have been sown for less than a week, and they are popping up like crazy. I need to thin them probably in the next few days, but I love radishes because I think it's a 30-day maturity date, so they grow super fast. And then over here I have a daisy that's looking a little bad. I just deadheaded it, so we have some new blooms hopefully popping up there soon. Coming down here, these 2 bags I've just recently sown beets in, so again they're starting to pop up here as well. I'm interested to see how these do because I sowed the same variety, the same seed packet in the spring, and they just didn't really form very large beets. I don't know if it got too hot too soon, but hopefully as we're going into cooler temperatures in the fall, I'll have some good results. So I'll keep you updated on those as well. Dahlia plant, still doing well, even though I've been fighting off cucumber beetles for the last month that not only have attacked my melon plants, that's the main reason I pulled them, is they were just getting ravaged by the cucumber beetles and starting to wilt and die. They haven't been doing damage to my dahlia plants themselves, but they've been eating the flowers, and obviously I don't want anything destroying this. So I've been trying to treat them with Captain Jack's dead bug brew, but I've found more success just hand pulling them and destroying them that way. That seems to have adequately reduced their numbers. In the back here, this is where I was growing sweet peas, I have now replaced those with snap peas that are starting to pop up as well. And if you go back and look at a spring garden tour, I did not plan a trellis system for my snap peas, and they took off like crazy. So I had to basically cobble together something with pieces of wood and twine, and it didn't look great and it wasn't very supportive, but it worked well enough. But I'm excited for the fall to actually have a real trellis system in place. Moving over, I have my sunflowers. So these have also been attacked by the cucumber beetles, and I actually lost a sunflower plant just a couple weeks ago. I don't know if the cucumber beetles brought some disease into the plant or if it just happened to die around the same time that I saw them everywhere, but that made me sad. Luckily, I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 sunflower plants on here still, so they are still bringing me joy in the garden. Swinging over to this bed. So what used to be here was another honeydew that I pulled and replaced with a marigold. This sunflower has grown up a lot. Basically, this one was a seedling I had to thin, but I couldn't stand to actually get rid of it, so I plopped it in the middle here, and it's done really well. I have my pepper plant over here that I have had here for I think a few months now. Basically, when I pulled the one that was getting overwhelmed by the marigolds, I went ahead and got another pepper plant in here. So that's been doing really well. And then I have more snap peas there growing up in the back that'll cover this trellis. Down here is a mini pumpkin plant. It's also been attacked by the cucumber beetles. You can see it's not, I mean, some of the leaves look healthy and then some of them look pretty much near death. I don't actually have any tiny pumpkins forming yet that I've seen, but hopefully I'll have some soon. They're like really small. I think they're called like baby pumpkins. Oh, actually, it's right here. Pumpkin wee be little. So I'm hoping I get a couple, but we'll see how it does. And then this side over here is essentially a repeat of that side. So sunflower, more snap peas in this flower box, and then another dahlia. For some reason, this dahlia has been the one that's been more attacked by the cucumber beetles. I don't know why they prefer this side, but I would rather have them mostly attacking one plant versus both. But I haven't seen one in a little bit, so I'm hoping that I've reduced their numbers enough that the dahlias continue to flourish throughout the rest of the season. And then over here, I just have the last sunflower plant in the grow bag. So I think that is everything for the September 1st garden tour. It is still very warm. I always forget when I'm planting things in May that September and October are much warmer than May is. So we'll see how long most of these plants stick around, but I've really enjoyed the garden this year. It's definitely the largest garden I've had, the most plants I've been growing, and it just brings me so much joy every day to be able to spend time out here. Okay, well that is everything for this month. I hope you enjoyed the garden tour, and be sure to check out some of the last garden tours that I've done. I think the first month was either March or April, and I'll plan to do these obviously the rest of the season. But thank you so much for following along, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.